I hear it's actually really good, like for your heart health too, to be in an absolute constant state of uncertainty and unknowingness. Like it's really good for like your mental and physical health. So
the faster my heart pumps, the more healthier I am.
It's got to be more efficient, right?
Because it's pumping more blood. Yeah,
it's getting exercise constantly. It's good for it.
Yeah, faster is always better.
But I don't even have to exercise anymore. It's just gonna do it on its own.
Yeah, just be constantly stressed, drink nothing but coffee, like straight up the most caffeinated coffee you can find, and then you're good.
Pour a little maybe Red Bull in as a shot of Red Bull with the coffee. Yeah.
Well, you need something to cool the coffee down. It's a little too hot when it comes out of the pot. Throw some Red Bull in there. Cold Red Bull.
Cold. Yeah.
If it's warm, it doesn't work the same.
A cold brew, Zach, just with Red Bull.
Ooh, okay. Instead of dropping a shot of espresso, drop a shot of Red Bull.
Yes. Why not both?
Do we need a disclaimer under this that we are not medical professional licensed people?
Not anymore. You just said it. We're good now. We're covered.
I'm pretty sure the disclaimer is like the first thing that pops up when you find the Patreon link. So,
probably.
And with that, welcome back to the Sportsball Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Zach, followed by Andy and Nate, and we're once again here to bring you your weekly sports updates. And I don't know. I'd say it wasn't necessarily a slow week since we last got together, but it hasn't necessarily been a hot topic type of week either. Not nearly as big as last week was in terms of like college football transfers, at least for Nebraska side of things. I will say though, we can start with the biggest news coming out of Wayne, Nebraska, national championships in rugby, baby.
Here we go.
So good start. Now I will
where that was going.
I will follow that up with I don't know anything about the rugby team. But congrats to them. That's exciting.
I do know something about the rugby team. They're winners.
They are winners. They are national champions. And I'm probably going to get this number wrong. This is like their 5th or 6th time winning the national championship for rugby. So clearly for their division, I'm guessing other schools have different divisions and whatnot, but still impressive. So
have they thought about making the jump up to like, I don't even know what Wayne State is.
Well, so that's what I mean is I don't know like what, if they're like D1, I don't know if it's like, I don't know the different levels of rugby in college. So I honestly probably could have done some looking into that, but I didn't. So, but congrats to them for being national champions.
You say it's going to be factual anyways, because we are the #1 sports podcast.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yes, I forgot to say that in our intro as well. Welcome back to the #1 sports podcast in the world. Don't fact check us.
No fact checks needed here.
It's very clearly, I mean, it's just known at this point. So, to be for realsies though, I guess really we'll just start with MLB. There was at least one piece of news that came out. This will probably be quick, but what was his first name? Was it
Cody?
Cody
Yeah,
Bellinger.
he would have got there eventually.
I knew it started with a C. That was all I had. I had like 4 or 5 other names. So Cody was not one of the top 5 names I had, to be fair. So I didn't see where he went, but he came from the Cubs to
the bad team.
Yeah. The who's?
The evil empire.
The Astros
bad team. Well, the other one.
The other. That could be anybody.
Well, if we're gonna narrow down some choices,
Yankees?
Yes, there we go.
Okay.
It's like besides the Astros, what's the other evil empire team you think of?
Well, in my opinion, I feel like the Yankees aren't as bad as the Astros, at least in the like past like 5-6 years. They're still not great, but like I mean
cheating, but
yeah, I feel like that's worse.
Bad to me.
I feel like cheating is worse.
Yeah, especially how the Astros did it, yes, and I'll never forgive anybody on that team.
Speaking of which, they got in trouble for, was it sign stealing or something?
Yeah.
So they had Connor Stallions?
Yeah.
Nice. Good for them.
Everybody's doing it. Just be better at not getting caught. I mean,
yes, Andy, that's always a great way to go about life. Everybody else is doing it. I might as well too. Call me crazy, but I think that leads to some pretty bad peer pressure things.
Is it like
ask me how I know.
Of if your friend jumps off a bridge, would you jump off too? And you're like, absolutely, yes.
I mean,
Looks
yeah,
fun.
yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it for the vibes.
If my homie's jumping off a bridge, he probably has a good reason. So
Yeah, like, it looks like fun. I'm gonna do it too.
If your friend's jumping off a bridge, first of all, he's not jumping off the bridge. I'm pushing him. Second of all, I'm following him. So yes, I absolutely am going to. I am 100% going to follow him off the bridge. That's what homies do.
That's you got me there. Like there's no other way to say that.
I keep telling you guys, I think the three of us are actual geniuses. No one seems to believe us. I don't know why, but it just seems like, I don't know. So
It is.
I guess there was one other piece of news that came out today, and it does relate to the Cardinals. Arenado.
This was very funny.
Arenado was, I guess, like the Astros were like, hey, like we'll take him as part of a trade deal, and he was just like, no. So
Straight
like,
up said no.
I was like, okay, I guess. I'm curious. I didn't really read into why. I tried to start reading it, and then of course that full-time job thing got in the way. So I didn't actually get to go back and read it, but yeah, I don't know the details, but I could only imagine it was probably not petty or anything at all. So
I also would not want to go to the Astros, so whatever his reasoning was, I don't blame him.
I hear they're cheaters over there.
Oh, they're a little more than that.
the streets are.
See,
Yep.
and now you're sitting here. Now you're sitting here telling me that somehow the Yankees are worse.
Well, they are though.
This is the literal definition of a mixed signal, Andy. I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with this information.
The Yankees are the Kansas City Chiefs brand of bad.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so then what's the Astros in comparison then?
Patriots in terms of cheating. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. That's for those people that comment on like YouTube and stuff. Not on our videos. We don't get comments, but those ones that are like, can someone explain this in football terms? Have you guys ever seen those?
Yeah.
Oh my God, those are great. Oh, I'm guessing there's actually more baseball news, but I don't know. I don't have
really.
not anything.
Kyle
huge.
Tucker did get traded from Houston to the Cubs, so that probably
Balances.
kicked off the trade for Bellinger from the Cubs.
Yeah.
So
That would make sense.
I mean, I think we're still waiting on Corbin Burns sign literally anywhere. And then the Japanese pitcher, I don't know how to say his name.
Bless your soul.
Yeah, thank you.
For those audio only listeners, Andy had to mute himself so he could sneeze.
Or it's just a really long suspense build up until I find how to say this guy's name. Which I probably won't. But
Which could be way worse if you got like
Sasaki?
all that suspense
I
just to
think
then get it wrong. Yeah, see? You don't even
Roki
know.
Sasaki. Yeah. They're like the other big notable names of pitchers that we're waiting for. I guess Bregman still hasn't decided where he wants to go yet, but who knows when that'll be decided. I mean, they could literally sign 3 days before spring training starts and wait
Stay
that
tuned.
long, so.
Stay tuned to this spot because we'll be the first podcast to tell you.
It might be days late that it happens, but you'll find out about it one way or another.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. Just like somebody probably finding that Patreon link.
That's right. The one that
It
actually exists.
definitely exists. Yeah.
Yes, probably.
Thankfully, though, I think we're finally set at a level. I think, what did we land on? Like 10 Billy?
Yeah.
We haven't, that price hasn't gone up.
no,
So,
I thought it
Yep.
was 20.
Yeah.
There have been some additions.
okay. Well, we need somebody. Well, I'm very far behind on eating. So I really do need some sustenance at this point. So if somebody could find that, please.
Because
it'd be
what
great.
are we up to? The Twins, the Jazz. Are we buying the hockey team too? The Utah Hockey Club?
I think we have to.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just going to take over Utah sports at this point, we might as well just get all of them.
We could probably throw like the Jaguars in there or something.
Yeah, we can actually just move them to London since the NFL
That's
is
true.
secretly
That's
trying
true.
to do that without telling them. So we'll just make it official.
It's the Patrick meme and push it somewhere else.
They keep putting Jacksonville in London, so might as well just move them to London at this point without.
Or we could see if we could swoop in on the Panthers too.
Oh, yeah,
Oh wait, I think that was who we decided, wasn't it?
it might be.
We had an NFL team, although
Good
Jacksonville
person.
would just be
Denver's an
funnier.
awful owner. Jacksonville would be very much funnier though. Cut Trevor Lawrence and keep Mac Jones.
As I say, that's the first obvious move.
Yeah, obviously.
We might get immediately fired as owners.
No, Zach, it's gonna work out though. Mac Jones was a legacy at Alabama.
To be fair, I did just say might. And once again, Thea's got some thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think Theo approves of cutting Trevor Lawrence.
You know, she might be onto something.
No,
But
that can't be it.
I would say that cutting Trevor Lawrence might not be a bad idea because he's hurt. So
Yeah, I mean he's not a
Quarterbacks-
viable option.
quarterbacks are no good when they're hurt.
That's
Telling
good
me.
points. That's good points.
Like I said, geniuses. All right.
Keep Matt. I mean, to be Brian Thomas Jr. Man, keep that Mac
Yeah.
Jones, Brian Thomas Jr. synergy going. That's all you need.
I mean, you look at all the playoff teams right now. Most of their quarterbacks have been healthy and alive all year. Look at the
Keep,
not quarterback teams or not playoff teams. All their teams, like all those teams, are looking for a quarterback.
That's fair.
Or benching,
should kind of
or they're benching their quarterback that they spent like $180 million on. But we'll get to that.
yeah.
So happy.
Keep that in your pocket like Cole's cash.
That's right. Spoiler, Andy. Spoiler.
That's why you got to tune in. Who could I possibly be talking about?
Yeah, who possibly? Probably the same guy they saw at Pizza Ranch. Wink, wink. Anyway, let's move on to some NHL stuff, which is going to be similar, really, to
Stick puck.
MLB, which stick pucking. Yeah, officially, from the Nashville Predators side of things, they are still the worst team in the league. By not a big margin, only 2 games, but they're still tied with Chicago for last in terms of points. So it's been a rough year as a Nashville Predators fan, but that's next year.
Next year is the year.
Yes.
They did actually. I think they just won. I don't know if it was yesterday or a couple days ago, but they did just win here recently, so that was nice. They beat the Rangers, and they beat the Stars, I think, last week. So it's only upwards from here at this point, honestly. So
One would think.
one would think, but I'll let you guys go because no one wants to hear about the Nashville Predators, not even me.
Not a whole lot from the Avalanche standpoint. I mean, I think they've gone 1-1 since we last talked, so nothing really to report on other than they're still trying to figure out which goalie that they traded for they want to play and consistently start. But from that aspect, that's really about all I have for that. But if you're looking for some local hockey club plug,
Ooh.
the Lincoln Stars are now in second place. Fargo's doing that thing where they figured out they were good at hockey again.
Of course they are.
Do that.
But the Lincoln Stars are only out of first by a point. I mean, Fargo's got 35, Lincoln's got 34, so it's not much of a disparity there.
Season's over.
Sir. They've only
Quick
played
to-
27
quick-
games.
Quick to pull that trigger.
Yeah, no doubt. But
Yeah, and Sioux City, who had their hot start, actually, they're not too
They're
far
fourth.
behind. They're fourth.
they're only 5 points out of first. And only 4
Oh,
behind second.
And then, I mean, once playoffs start, it's a whole different ballgame. So,
But yeah.
sorry, it's a whole different puck game.
There we go. That's
My bad.
That's where we want to go. But yeah, local hockey club. We'll keep you updated with your hometown favorite crowd, Lincoln Stars. Only on this podcast. No other podcast is doing the depths and research that we are doing. Only us.
Probably.
That's why we are the number 1 sports podcast. I mean,
we're so in depth that we don't actually tell you any of these stats either.
Yes.
They're our secrets.
they're tucked away in our secret private Google two-way authentication.
It's right next to the
Profile.
Patreon link.
Yes. Somewhere if you find that link, you pretty much could own the Sportsball podcast in and of itself. So
That's it. There's more incentive.
yeah. So if you really want to like control our lives, I guess do it. But
Well, let's calm down with that. No, thank you.
But Nate had some interesting comments over the past week that some wagon wheels might be on fire and dismantling from the axle. It sounds like
Not any of us super quick to judge. Not
Yeah.
at all.
No.
not at all.
But the team has folded. They're going to try again another 10 to 15 years. We'll see what happens. But not as on fire as I had thought. There actually was a game in between that I missed, so they didn't lose 2 in a row.
Okay.
They have lost.
You made
2
it sound like
last
you
3.
made it sound like they were on a 4-game losing streak.
Pretty much.
I mean, it's basically the same thing.
I see no difference.
You guys are impressively better away from home than you are at home.
Yeah, that's a Minnesota thing.
You are 12-2-3 away and 8-5-1 at home.
Yep.
So you guys clearly do not care about home field ice.
Remember the whole Denver Nuggets series with the Timberwolves where they only won on the road?
Only the away team won that game.
That's actually impressive, though. Like, that just means that like Minnesota teams should just move.
Where you look at Dallas,
No.
it's 13-3 at home, but 6-8 on the road. So I guess if you play Dallas, play them away from home.
Fair enough.
That actually makes sense. That actually tracks.
But yeah, I think they're sitting 4th now in the standings, and they're still only like 3 points behind Winnipeg in 1st. So not a precipitous drop. But
2 of the 4 division leaders are Canadian teams, and they probably still will not win the Stanley Cup this year.
There you go.
that's just how that works.
Yeah. You have a 50-50 shot if you took the top teams right now, and they probably still wouldn't win.
It's called tradition.
That seems like I'd say it seems like a problem, but whatever.
Not at us, bro.
Correct. We only care about wagon USA teams.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we're definitely not talking about the sport that was invented in Canada or anything like that.
It's not our fault that Canada can't win another cup. We're just reporting on it, right? Like we're just the ones talking about it.
It's like England soccer. It's just funny at this point.
It is. They keep saying bring it on home, and then they never do.
I don't know. By the way, I don't know if we can call last year with the fact that a Canadian team had a really good shot when they were literally in the final series to win it all.
Yeah, they had a really good shot.
I still think that's downplaying it a little bit, but I guess you're not wrong. Technically correct is still the best kind of correct. So, Point Andy. I'll give Andy the point there.
Wait, we're giving points out now?
Yeah, just started. You can find the standings with our Patreon link. All right. Well, yeah. Outside of our teams doing our team things, I guess the one thing I was going to ask has Ovechkin scored? What's he at?
Has he
Pretty sure he's
played
injured still?
He's
I
at.
thought it was like a 5 to 6 week IR stint.
Oh, has it been that? I felt like it's been that long. I guess.
No, it's been probably like 3 weeks since we talked about it. But
Dang it! Well, this is dumb.
I figured, if I remember correctly, it was at least like a 5 to 6 week move that he was going to be
He
out
participated at practice on December 14th in a non-contact jersey.
It is December 18th for those that are wondering of when we recorded. So do the math. 18 minus 14, Zach. What do we get?
That would be 4 days.
Good job.
Thank you. All right. Well, I thought for some
the count here.
I thought for some reason that we were hitting because I thought it started as like 4 weeks, so I thought we were close. But I guess if it's 5 to 6, then we're obviously not there yet. So
Not only are we sports informational, we are just in general life knowledge informational. That people come to us to listen to these takes and learn math.
and learn math. We're basically
that's most of our viewership, I imagine, is the people that are
the mathematicians.
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually tracks.
That'd be a sweet demographic to get, though.
Yeah, they could probably like statistically tell us how to get more viewers or something. So
And
Or they
maybe
could statistically tell us how to find the Patreon
yeah,
link.
maybe probably who knows.
yeah, it is what it is. All right, moving on from stick puck. Then let's go to professional orange ball.
Does Nate want to talk about his unserious team?
Hey, they're getting more serious.
Good. We were worried, to be
And
fair.
so,
Me too.
what'd you say last night that Ant will show up in a Santa costume on
Oh
Christmas
yeah. Well, that's different. in that one scenario like that, yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if he came out in his Santa Claus costume sponsored by Sprite on the chest or something, and
Correct.
shooting left-handed probably at that point.
There you go.
And you're not probably playing a scrub team on Christmas because they wouldn't
No,
put a
it's the
scrub
Mavericks.
matchup. Yeah, exactly. You gotta need him to be a serious part of that game.
Yeah.
That's unnecessary.
But they are, I believe, since the end of November there, where Ant essentially called out the team for kind of being soft in the locker room after the game. I think it was the Kings loss right around Thanksgiving there. They have been the number one defense in the league since then. So that's been exciting.
Interesting, because the last
Yeah.
time that we talked about this, one of the top defenses in the league, and they probably still are one of the top ones, but that was, Oklahoma City. So
They are, I think they're overall they're fourth, but like in the last 3 weeks or something, they've been first in the league. But they were like, 8 or 9, and now they're up to 4, and they are playing more serious basketball now, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, if you go for points, average points allowed right now, Orlando and OKC are tied at 103.5. The Wolves are third at 105.6.
Yep.
I love those radio stations.
And they had one game against
Nobody
the
come
Warriors where Ant was trying to show off for Steph, and they just let that one get away from him. But since November 29th, that's the only game they've allowed a team to score over 100 points.
That seems like a good.
Yeah.
That seems good.
Yeah. I think even like the worst scoring teams in the NBA average like 103, 104 at the moment. So holding the Clippers, Lakers, Spurs, and Golden State once to 90 points or less essentially has been fun.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say that's usually a good sign.
But it is the one thing that holds me back on it. It is that they've kind of been beating up on the geriatric crowd of the NBA outside of Wembanyama on Sunday. So there is kind of like,
so they're beating teams
you're
supposed
playing
to beat.
Well, you're playing LeBron and James Harden and Steph, and they got a couple miles on the tires there. So
just a little.
The slate does get tougher pretty much into the first of the year when we kick off with, I think, OKC and looks like Boston a day or two later. So,
ouch.
Yeah,
It's kind of a nasty 1-2 punch.
New Year's Eve game. Against Oklahoma City in Oklahoma City.
Yep.
So I know Nate and I are super.
And then we
excited to
don't
watch
see
that.
Oklahoma City again until March, and it's all in like three games in 24 hours or something.
February 13th and then February 23rd and 24th.
Oh, February. Yeah. They play it back to back, and
but not back to back in the same city.
Nope,
Back to
that
back
would
in
be
different
too
cities.
easy.
One night
Yes.
in Minnesota and the other night in Oklahoma City.
Yep.
Yes, because that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah. Good for you know what? Good for them. Just I can't imagine what goes into making these like these schedules for these teams, but
Great.
this one it just seems very much like they're just like
And like
we don't know what we're doing.
and it makes sense because well, this next part makes sense, but when Oklahoma City plays Denver and the Lakers like at the end of the season, they have back-to-backs to get them, but they're both in the same city.
Yeah.
So I don't know why.
Fun.
I don't know why that it is what it is.
See?
Like,
Now if we get money to start taking over teams, we can also start using our ownership privileges to start making better schedules for people.
it's
I assume that's how
Yes.
that works.
I'm pretty sure.
that weird stretch. Oklahoma City goes to Minnesota, then they fly to Utah, they fly back to Minnesota, and then they fly back home the next night to go play Minnesota again at home.
That just sounds like
None of it makes sense.
that just sounds like a lot of extra steps to just play.
Right.
None of it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. But they do this week is kind of exciting though, because it's Thursday. The Knicks come to town. That'll be Cat's first game back at Target Center since he was traded away. So
That should be a good game too.
yeah, it's I think it's on TNT, so that'll be a nationally broadcast one. And
You're saying it's going to be an explosive game then?
yes,
yeah.
probably. Hopefully not. Hopefully the defense keeps it from being explosive. Number one defense in the last 3 weeks.
Well, come on. That was a pun. Come on, guys. Keep up.
I don't understand.
am keeping up.
But the main thing for the Wolves is that Julius Randle has decided to step up and play defense, which is helpful. And Jaden McDaniels is getting a little more latitude to do some things on the offensive end. He actually had his first career double-double against the Spurs. And Rob Dillingham is absolutely just a microwave that you can throw out there at any point if you want something crazy to happen. So they've been fun to watch and they've been exciting to watch the last couple weeks. So
I don't know why, but I'm suddenly envisioning just like a basketball player coming out onto the court with a microwave in his like a legit microwave and just throwing it at somebody. Just based on what you said, I'm just like, I don't think that's what he meant, but that would be kind of funny.
He does. I will say he's a 19-year-old. He's like 6'1", 180, 70 pounds at most, like soaking wet. So he's a little dude, but he's quick and his handles are tight. He's got some solid highlights already. So
Don't threaten me with a good time.
yeah, vibes are getting better in Minnesota. There's still room for growth, but we're starting to see at least some of the vision now. So,
Well, it would appear I'm going to use this, and then we'll let Andy, since he's got the best team in the this third best team, technically. But I'm going to let him finish because that's a perfect little segue. Because right there with the Wolves in the standings is the Phoenix Suns, who finally got their apparently the only player on the Phoenix Suns this year, Kevin Durant, back, which isn't actually fair. Devin Booker has finally, I think, started to heat up, which I did kind of call that. I said that at the beginning of the year, he wasn't looking like himself. And he said there was enough new stuff in the team that he probably just needed to kind of adjust. And he hasn't played necessarily like perfectly, like prime Devin Booker has in the past couple of years, but he's started to finally kind of find his groove. And he's been like the leading scorer on the team for most of the games the past couple of weeks. So good signs. Kevin Durant's finally back. Really, the only hot news with the Suns is that apparently they're going to try to get Jimmy Butler, which I know, Nate, you and I have talked about this in our group chat, that is he that much better than Beal? Well, Bradley Beal has not played hardly any in the past couple weeks because he's been hurt. And at least Jimmy Butler can say he has played in the past couple weeks. So it's already an upgrade. And also, Jimmy Butler, even though they lost, I think it was to the Pistons, he still had like a really, really good game. So it's like put him on a team better than the Heat, and maybe we'll see. But yeah, I guess we'll see how that goes.
I absolutely agree that athletically 1,000 times better than Beal. Still got some pep in his step, and yeah, like you said, he had what was it? 35, 19, 10, 4.
Yeah, he had a triple double, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like, I mean, for how old he is, because I had to actually look that up because I was confused the other day because he's 34 or 35. Yeah, 35. Okay. And Bradley Beal is only 30. But the thing with Bradley Beal is that he's very similar to Giannis in the way he plays, not necessarily being as tough as Giannis, where I'm pretty sure like Beal's style of basketball is shoulder first. And it's not really helping him because he keeps getting problems with his legs, which is odd because you would think maybe it'd be an upper body injury. But again, when he's out there trying to play football. But, you know, the only two people on the team that I have any attachment to, I shouldn't say that. I have three. Ryan Dunn, they're kind of similar to the one you were just talking about, Nate. I forgot his name already.
Rob Dillingham.
Yes.
Dilly.
But with Ryan Dunn, he's the rookie on the team. He plays really, really well. Obviously, still plays like a rookie, though, so he's got some growing to do, but that's to be expected. He plays really well for a rookie. Then Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. So as long as those three stay, the rest of the team, I'm like, do what you need to do. So, yeah, I think the Suns are finally starting to look up a little bit. I'm kind of doing the same thing this year so far that Nate does with the Minnesota Wild, where I kind of just watch from afar or, kind of watch through the window in the sense where I keep updated on my phone, but haven't really watched a game too much this year. So I don't know, maybe I'll change that, but it's been one of those things that's kind of working for me. So I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. So I'm going to keep it with that. But that's solid Suns news. Over to Andy.
So, yeah, the biggest thing that we had talked about last time was the continuation of the NBA Cup. They did handle the Rockets very handedly, actually. Never was really a close game in the second half at all when OKC Thunder pulled away. Got to the championship against Milwaukee, and Giannis is still kind of good at basketball. If there were many haters and doubters of Giannis, there are few, but he is still pretty good at basketball, to no surprise. But hopefully it's not a trend for Oklahoma City. They just really had a bad night of offense. They still only lost 91-87, despite shooting, I think, 4 for something, 30 plus from 3-point range. So they had a really bad night of offense all around, but still only gave up 97 points. So their defense is still really good, but you can't really beat Giannis when you're not scoring that much on offense. So that's why I'm hoping it was just an off night, that it's not a trend going forward. More some glaring issues that it's like, so what do you do when Shea or Jay Will aren't scoring the ball? Who are your other go-getters and point scorers off the bench or just in the starting rotation? So hopefully it's a one-off, but they just learn from it, and it's not a continuation of what the season holds. But they didn't win the cup. Shucks. That's super
serious. That's super serious.
That don't count towards your regular season record. So all I saw last night was like, and the Thunder lose, and they'll drop to what they currently are at 20-5. And the Thunder
I was going to say
on a 5-game win streak because it doesn't really count. So they just played an extra game for fun. Is really all that was.
And $500,000.
$500,000 for each player. But it's I don't know. I don't know if the NBA Cup is like, I guess you'd probably have to ask the players their opinions on like if they like the maybe in-season tournament type competitiveness or not. As a fan, like I mean, obviously we all hit the courts. I mean, that's a given. So, I mean, I don't mind trying to do something more in like season competitive, in an 82 game grueling stretch where
Mhm.
you're not trying to do load management of, whatever rule they implemented of you have to play a certain number of games to like qualify for awards, and it won't get fined for the NBA, so on and so forth. So, looking at you, Joel Embiid.
I like the NBA Cup. It actually gives meaning to
Yeah.
Those
some of the
early,
early
like the early
season
season stuff.
because
Yeah.
And that's why I'm wondering if I don't know if it should be more of like if it should literally be the mid-season point of the schedule, or if it's more suited towards the earlier part of the schedule when maybe some teams are still trying to figure out everything. But I don't know if it should be like like instead of the All-Star break, maybe you do some sort of round robin type thing in that setting where it's not like a super load amount of games, but something maybe similar to that compassion, or you have like your semifinals and finals kind of around the All-Star break. I don't know, but Durant was not happy with the new format that they announced for the All-Star
No, he was
break.
not.
If you want to go watch his video, you can. It's pretty good.
It's like the top headline on like ESPN for like the NBA heading too. It's like Kevin Durant does not like the new All-Star late format.
Right.
But I mean, how long have we heard from people in the NBA? And I mean, it's kind of the same thing with like the Pro Bowl in the NFL, where people are just like, yeah, like the players don't necessarily love it. Like hate is new. I think that might be a new one that we've heard, but like people are just like, yeah, whatever. Like they don't take it seriously.
Yeah, right.
And I get why. Like, why would you play it super seriously when you've got actual games after that to play? You don't want to like hurt yourself.
And I think
stupid.
people watch like the events more than the games itself. Because I'm thinking like if you look at MLB, I watch the home run derby more than the All-Star game. I watch the 3-point contest and the dunk contest more than I actually do watch the All-Star game. Not that I don't really watch the skills things for the NFL or anything, but in terms of like competition and events outside of the games, I feel like people kind of like more of that more than just the game itself. So I don't know if you need to do something more along those lines where you just make it more of like a skills competitive competition rather than just a game where people put up 200 points and don't play defense.
Yeah. And I think that's what they're trying to do with this new 14 format. So
right. So
I'm interested to see how it works. It'll just depend on how much the players buy into it.
It's the same with the Cup. I mean, this is only the second year of the NBA Cup, so maybe if it gets more ingrained into the seasons going forward, that we'll probably start prioritizing it more, and maybe the incentives will go up for trying to win the Cup instead of 500,000. Adam Silver can find more money to pour into the NBA. I'm sure he can and will.
Oh, I'm sure. Speaking of Adam Silver, could be our first little embrace debate that I think we've ever really had on the podcast. I'm looking at just like ESPN headlines, and apparently Adam Silver is looking into critiques of increased 3-point volume, saying that he's heard criticisms of offenses becoming cookie cutter and that basically teams are chucking up too many threes. And I guess I will start the embrace debate and say I somewhat agree in the sense that like it seems like that's all teams do is it's just like trying to find an open 3-pointer. But I don't know if it's working and that's what teams are doing. Like I only somewhat agree because it's like, then yeah, I mean if that's what they're gonna do, then you might as well do it. Like how do you tell teams to stop? Like what's he gonna do to change that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just was curious if you guys had thoughts on it.
I don't think they should change how.
I didn't even realize this was a true criticism to begin with until I read this. So I was just like, what?
I mean, they're definitely, and I think if you look at kind of when that momentum shifted, I definitely think Steph has a lot to do with that in terms of just throwing up crazy, obscene amount 50-foot threes and draining them like they're nothing. But that's obviously a lot of younger kids have Steph Curry jerseys, want to shoot like Steph, want to drain as many threes like Steph, so on and so forth. I think that's kind of when the movement started of people wanting to do more like 3-point play, I guess, in a sense, if you want to look at it that way. I don't think it needs to be changed by any means. I don't think you need to make the lines longer or extend them or anything. I think they're fine the way they are. I guess I'm basing this off of Oklahoma City too, because Oklahoma City does not prioritize 3-point shooting. They're like 20th in the league right now in terms of completion percentage. So they're obviously a very defensive minded team first and score in transition and, just let Shea do Shea things. But so I guess if I had a team that did prioritize 3-point shooting and, was going to be like affected by whatever decisions happens, and I'd probably be a little mad about it because you're changing something that's benefiting your team to something that doesn't benefit your team anymore. So I don't know if he should change anything. I don't know what about the current game, like what need to be changed. If he's also looking for things.
to give you a bit more info, and then I was going to say I'm curious what Nate has to say because he's the basketball guy between all of us. I feel like, but to be fair, Adam Silver did say, and as I'm kind of skimming this, he has said that there's not going to be any changes on the fly like this year, right? Like at earliest, it's probably going to be next season. But then I think this is based apparently on the Celtics, who are currently averaging 51.1 attempted threes per game. Because they have
a lot of players that can shoot threes.
It's like I don't understand why this is a criticism. Like if that's the way they play, if it's just based on that, that's super weird.
And if that's how you want to build your roster, that's how you want to build your roster. Like there's nothing that says you can't. Now, whether that works or not is dependent on how you make your threes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What you got, Nate? What do you think, Nate?
Yeah.
I mean,
a man of many words.
If you have a problem with the too many 3-pointers, then defend the 3-point line more.
Right.
Yeah. I don't see why this is. I just was shocked that I even read this headline. I was like,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of see it because I think a lot of people are kind of looking. It's the whole, offense versus defense in like the NFL discussion where a lot of people are like, well, I like watching the defensive battles. Me too. But like, the casual viewer that's tuning into an NFL game, similar to the NBA at this point, is probably looking for like that high power, that high octane type of offense where it's crazy. The Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes throwing crazy football passes. In this case, they're probably looking for crazy dunks and super cool like alley-oops and stuff. And it's like, I get that, but statistically speaking, if that's why we're seeing so many teams that are scoring 120 points a game now, it's because the 3-point line is, well, you know what I mean, though. Like you look at look at the scores that you saw in the NBA like 5-6 years ago to now. You're seeing, like if you see a team that scores under 100 points, I guess you're playing against the Timberwolves, or you're like, dang, they had a terrible night shooting. So like 100-point game is nothing anymore in the NBA. So
I mean, it's just how the game's trending. I mean, there's just more shooters on the floor. I mean, that is the one, I don't know, critique, I guess, that they would probably want to look into is that the NBA is becoming very positionless. Like, I mean, obviously your taller guys have a little advantage, like Wembanyama's, and if you're just, 7 foot, 300 pounds, you're going to be a problem too, like Zion. But
he doesn't play anyway, so he's always hurt. So
when he's healthy,
but I mean, having the ability to have your 7-footer step out and make a 3 or 2 a game is useful to the offense because it spreads the defense out, and that's just kind of an extra aspect of it. And like I said, you just have to scheme up defense to better mitigate that.
I think the positionless thing in NBA, and to your point, you're correct, where it's not so much positionless, but it's more fluid in what you can play. You can have a 5 that could play somewhere's up to like a 3,
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, Wemby sometimes plays point guard. So
Exactly. So it's like
And-
I love that. It's like, yeah, like let's see what you can like. It's kind of the whole like let Olympians like do steroids thing. Like let's see what you can do. That's a bit of a weird, drastic like switch, but
No doubt.
you know, it's the point though. It's like I'd love to see somebody. I want to see what they can do. So you know, let them do steroids.
That's a take.
That's all I'm saying. Just let athletes do steroids.
Yeah. It's if you want to look at it from the college perspective too, I mean, a prime example is Creighton, and Drake McDermott's very well known for, the let it fly mentality of building his roster around 3-point shooters. And it burns them when the threes aren't falling, like against Nebraska. I mean, they shot the most amount of threes they shot all season up until that point and didn't make any of them because none of them were falling. So, Nebraska's defense is really good. That too, obviously, but it burns you and bites you in the butt if you try to build your roster in the mentality that way and you aren't on every night for 3-point range. So how do you mitigate that? And how do you try to change your offense when my roster is 3-point shooters basically? So it's again I keep going back to Oklahoma City because there's not they don't have, besides Shea, there's not really like a set 3-point shooter on Oklahoma City that you can go to besides Shea needing a bucket. Where if he's going to shoot a 3, he'll more than likely make it because he's your best 3-point shooter. Like Oklahoma City's not built like that. But it's either you adapt and you live with the changes or you get good.
And I mean, it's still, a 3-pointer still isn't always an easy, repeatable shot for a lot of players. So,
Yeah,
just because some players have kind of perfected the art better than others, but it's
Steph and Dame and
few than
as much as I want to give James
rule.
Harden crap. I mean, he's perfected the step back 3 in his arsenal. Same with Jokic. Well, Jokic's not really a 3. Just anything he throws up from 3 usually goes in, no matter how crazy it is. And Luka, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like I don't. I mean,
Getting good.
The worst part is that this is all based on ratings and people watching. So just like, I get it, but it's a game at the end of the day. Like the game should be played however it takes to win. So
right.
Actually, though, with that great little segue that Andy mentioned, we're going to move over to NCAA basketball, and I'm going to let you guys talk about this because I know nothing about it.
Because Bryce Williams is him.
Talking about doing what it takes to win.
But as we had talked about last week, we were very interested to see which version of Nebraska ball comes out after their shellacking against Michigan State. The advantage was you had your first conference opponent at home, and PB8 since last year has been a place where, according to John Ronstein, Big Ten teams go to die. And since last year, Nebraska is now 11-0 in conference play at home, which is an amazing stat to keep up so far.
Protecting the vault.
Yes, they did beat Indiana on last Friday. Yeah, last Friday, 85-68. First half was a lot of back and forth, a very tight game, and then Nebraska's defense. I think Indiana went scoreless the last 6 minutes, up until they hit a shot. Or no, they scored like 2 points in the last 6:30. Which is an amazing defensive stat for Nebraska. On top of that, Bryce Williams went 10 for 15, 30 points on the night. He is him, and he is slowly turning into, assuming that he keeps playing the way he is, he's going to be, I think, a very sneaky draft pick. Again, assuming that he keeps playing the way that he is currently right now. I should have wrote this down, but just his shooting style and just the way that he kind of reminds me of, and I don't know why I think of Chet when I think of how he shoots. Maybe it's just because he's kind of lengthy, and I don't know if there's a better comparison of who I think he kind of looks like in the NBA right now. But anyways, I could see him being like a very early round 2 pick. I don't know. He'd have to play like 30 points averaging every single game to maybe get a low first round draft pick consideration. But I think he could be drafted in the second round, assuming he keeps up his pace of play this year. Now, obviously, that is all dependent on the rest of the team doing what they need to do as well. But yeah, Nebraska had a very nice bounce back answer against Indiana. And for a second there, I thought I think it's their freshman, Miles Rice, started to cook us a little bit. And I got very nervous. He's a sophomore, but he scored like, I think 13 points in a row by himself at one point, and I was like, "Oh, this is not good." Because they're not
in the game plan. That was fine.
I guess. I mean, it worked out for him. That eventually Indiana went cold, and at the first half they hit 5 of their threes, and I think up until that point, the most threes they had made all season was 8 in a game. And I go, "Yeah, typical that a team would shoot near their season high mark in the first half against us already, because why wouldn't that happen?"
Nebraska making teams look way better than they actually are on paper. Name a better duo.
Yeah. Thankfully, that did not come to fruition. They still made 8 threes, but only 3 in the second half. So Nebraska and Fred Hoiberg's defense clamped down. Of what Fred is known for is adjusting to what he knows how to stop defenses, and I think Andrew Morgan should be starting over Braxton Mayo. But
Called it.
That's me.
First game of the season. Called it. Join the hater fan.
Andrew Morgan is a much more physical presence down low than Braxton Mayo is.
Well, Braxton Mayo is a physical presence. He's just not good.
He's not good at it. But then you put the mullet Andrew Morgan in, and I would be fearful of him going down low against me too. It's just, he's just like, he's a basketball looking guy. I mean, he's got the goatee, he's got a mullet, he wears a headband. It's just like, you go up against that dude, you're like, yeah, he could probably punch me in the face, and I would say thank you.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Exactly. But yeah, good win for Nebraska. They're off to the Diamond Head Classic now in Hawaii. So good for their holiday tournament. I think if they win that game, they'll play Oregon State ? I haven't really fully looked
I think
at
it's Oregon State and like Charleston.
Yeah. So a little holiday break for them for their early season non-conference tournament, if you want to call that. Not quite Maui, but you still get to go Hawaii in December from Nebraska. So I don't think they're really going to complain about it either.
I was going to say that's easily a win.
Yeah.
Even if you lose every game there, win.
But yeah, Nate, your thoughts on Indiana and what we're going to see when they play Murray State on Sunday evening.
My only thought is how Indiana still got 7 votes for the top 25 and Nebraska got 0. But Nebraska kind of beat the hell out of Indiana.
If you hold the team to 2 points total in the last 6:30 of a game, that deserves some consideration to be voted.
You might deserve more top 25 votes than that team.
Yeah.
But what do I know? They looked good, looked competent. I love that they have defense, and their kind of makeshift post play has been interesting to watch with, trying to replace Rank with Andrew Morgan and Bear K and Braxton Mayo at times. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, Fred, I would say, has done a really good job, bringing the team together, and it helps when you have your Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams leading the way. So, and I will echo your sentiment too. I think Bryce Williams definitely looks NBA ready type player, like not, not the next LeBron or even like a James Harden or anything. He looks like he'd be a solid, role player type.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So he looks like he could hold his own at least.
Yeah. This is obviously on the stipulation that he's going to continue what he's doing. And if he scores 30 a game, I would absolutely take that all all day. Now, he probably won't, but as long as he still, I mean, I would say averaging close to 18, 19 a game would be pretty good by the season end. And then you just hope that, obviously Jawan and Asijin can make up the threes when he needs to. And then any one of your three big men, just whoever finds consistency and gets the hot hand that you ride that. And Fred probably knows that too, but it's good to see that they bounced back. I'm sure Fred yelling at him probably had a big part to do with that. I'd also probably get yelled at if we got schlocked by 40 on the road. So,
yeah, and it's, I mean, just looking at his stats, I mean, Bryce Williams shooting like 50% from the field, 40% from three. That's 90% from free throws. Like that.
Right.
He can sustain that. That'll go places.
Yeah. So the schedule, I mean, again, but this holiday tournament, I'm not 100% sure how favorable, because I have not watched any of these other teams that's in the tournament this year. So I cannot tell you how good Murray State is, or Hawaii, or Oregon State, or Loyola Chicago. I don't know if Sister Jean's going to be there. I doubt they fly over Hawaii. But
Loyola Chicago's actually not bad this year.
No. And then Oakland will be there. Former Jack Golke stands. He's not.
Did you guys see? Was it him, their coach, and Izzo?
Yeah.
Wore the Grinch sweaters.
Yes. He usually does that about at this time of year. So
yeah, they were matching though.
They were. I'm glad, but I hope an NBA team can pick up Golke and just roll him off the bench, and we'll have one insane NBA night where he'll hit like 10 threes.
You did say that OKC needed some 3-point shooting.
They do.
There you go.
They do. I don't know if Dayton will focus solely on that, but after this last game, it might be a point of emphasis.
I know a guy who could.
Yeah.
Can they wait until next year?
Yes. But yeah, Nebraska ball finish up with that. They'll come back home for their last non-conference game against Southern. Zach, that team.
Southern. Hell yeah.
And then they'll officially be in Big Ten play the rest of the way. But then their next conference game is at home, thankfully, but it is against 18th ranked UCLA. So that'll be, I don't want to say these are tune-up games, because again, I don't know how these teams are in this tournament, but a couple games to maybe figure out some more things before you get into the grind of the Big Ten schedule here. And definitely starting off with one of the top teams in the Big Ten right now, but it's at home, and supposedly that's where Big Ten teams go to die. So we have that on our side.
This is true.
You love to hear it.
But with that, I think we'll go over to a foosball, Zachary. And I apologize to anybody that did willingly watch Rams and 49ers on last Thursday.
That game was so bad.
I know we root for defensive games, but that wasn't even a defensive game.
There's a difference between a defensive game and just like a terrible game.
That
was a rain game.
That shouldn't matter.
But even rain games can be more exciting than that. That was just
none of that was exciting. And then Debo was like, I want to catch the ball. I want to be the ball. Like, I want the ball more.
I will say this. Watching the 49ers implode the way they have this year, nothing does this cold, dead heart of mine better.
Mm-hmm.
Like I understand, like, as an Eagles fan, like, I hate the Cowboys, right? But, like, everybody hates the Cowboys. Most people hate the Cowboys, not everybody. So, like, that one doesn't – I feel like that one doesn't count. And also the Cowboys haven't really been great for the last, like – forever. So, but watching the 49ers, who went to the Super Bowl last year, just completely botch this year. And I understand a lot of that's been from injuries. It's not entirely their fault, but just like watching Debo just go through his diva phase right now is amazing, especially coming off of the week the Eagles had, where it's like, oh, like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith say that the passing was the problem. Like, yeah, did you watch the game? Passing was very clearly the problem, and then they fixed it this week. So shut the hell up. Like, I don't know. It's just funny.
I love giving you crap about your 12-2 team and having trouble in paradise.
It's ridiculous. All right. Well, with that, then I guess I'll start with the Eagles. It's just ridiculous to me because it's like I feel like Philadelphia media does not help, and I'm saying that in the sense like they're 12-2, they're now 13-2. They played a very good game against the Steelers. I'll start with that. Their game against the Steelers for the first half looked great. The third quarter was a little questionable, but it was one of those where I think Pittsburgh made. Well, the second quarter was pretty questionable because they started to come back a little bit. Third quarter was kind of in that same ballpark, but adjustments were made. And then the fourth quarter the last 10 minutes of the third quarter and then the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter were some of the best offensive drives I've ever seen from Philadelphia.
That drive chart for their last drive of the game?
Yes, it was awesome.
21 plays.
Yes. And it was just like that's the
way to kill a game.
Oh yeah,
eat clock like that.
They started at like their 2-yard line, and then just went down the field, and they didn't even score. They got down to like a minute and a half, or like the 2-minute warning, and then just kneeled it out. And I'm like, that is crazy. And people will watch games like that and be like, that sucked to watch. It didn't. That was awesome.
And I know Nate has probably seen these tweets when the Sickos committee tweets out like those long drive chart plays that either ended a punt or no points. Like that was it.
That was
like 18 plays, but either a missed field goal or a punt.
I need to go back and look.
Charts.
I meant to look it up while I was on, before we got on here, but I could probably do it now. But anyway, I was just like that was a perfect representation of like that's how you run. Like when you're ahead and you're ahead pretty comfortably, that's how you eat clock in a game. Like that's the type of drive that you show to like the rest of your teams. Be like, do this.
Right.
They weren't going for high stress. There were a couple times they went for higher risk plays, but nothing like a hook and ladder or anything like that. But it's crazy to me that we're still now like not me, but like people are still focused on all this stupid drama. It's just like it's like I still don't understand how that became such a big deal. Like they both were just like, yeah, the passing and the communication was a big problem today against Carolina. And it was like, if you go back and watch that game, yeah, I don't think they were saying they weren't wrong, but of course somehow that got twisted into, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts don't like each other. It's like, what? How did we get there? But all right, whatever. I mean, the Eagles still have a chance though to continue to go and somehow lock up the number 1 seed in the NFC, which was shocking to me. I don't foresee it happening, but I guess Detroit could certainly. I think they have to. I think I saw the Eagles have to basically win out, and then Detroit and the Vikings have to lose one for them to secure the number 1 seed. I don't foresee it happening. Just I think there's far too much left for that to happen, but we'll see. So Eagles are still pretty good. The drama's stupid. Moving on.
It's kind of funny though.
It is. I will admit, even as a fan, it is kind of funny just how like focused it is. But it's just like this is nothing. Shut up. Right. No one cares.
And of the noon slate games, I'm surprised, but I'm also not surprised by what was considered the best game in that slate between the Jets and the Jaguars. The only reason I'm not surprised is a sicko game being a very close game to the end shouldn't be all that surprising. It's just the fact that they were two terrible teams biting for a tankathon draft pick, which at this point, there's so many teams that are like all within a game of each other of that number 1 pick. There's so many like 3-11 teams and 2-12, 2-13 teams. Which is, I think it's only the Raiders and Giants. But either way, of the noon slate games, that was probably the best. The Saints did try to beat the Commies, which that would have been really interesting if the Commanders have lost. It kind of opened up a window for like Seattle and Atlanta, maybe Arizona, which those teams can still make it in by winning their division. But if the Commanders had gone to like 8-6 instead of 9-5, I mean that would have certainly made that last wild card spot a lot closer in the NFC. But alas, the Saints did not convert their 2-point conversion, and yeah, that was it for the noon slate games. There's really nothing else to watch with that. Now, what Zach did mention before, the Lions, that game, if you didn't like defense, was good for you to watch. The Bills went into Detroit and beat them 48-42. It was never really that close because Buffalo was kind of up 2 scores the entire game. And every time Detroit would score, they would only get back within a score of each time. And then Buffalo would come right back and score again. So the score was a lot closer than how that game actually did look. I think Buffalo pretty much commanded that game most of the way. But concerning for both teams going into the playoffs on defensive side, obviously we know with Detroit, they just have a lot of injuries right now on defense, which I know Nate shucks.
Hey, don't be a dirty defense, Dan.
But more concerning for Buffalo, yes, they have a high-powered offense, but, you know, you don't really want to be giving up 42 points in a playoff game and expecting to try to win that either at the same time. So
That's an ongoing theme with Buffalo, too.
Yeah.
Apparently, they went to the Big 12 School of Defense here recently.
Yeah. So, I mean, they, like we had mentioned before, there is a theoretical path for them to get the number 1 seed. Obviously, that requires them winning out, and the Chiefs, I think, either to lose out or lose 2 of their last 3. So, because Buffalo would have the head-to-head. So, yeah, Kansas City would need to lose 2 of their last 3. Buffalo would pretty much have to win out at this point. So, they still could theoretically get the 1 seed, but that story might come true depending on how Mahomes is. He did hurt his ankle. He's still, I think, considered day-to-day at this point.
He was a full participant in practice either yesterday or today. So,
and if he is active for Sunday, I don't know how that's going to look. I don't know how mobile he's going to be. Because if you did see him he got like twisted up, bent in a way that you shouldn't be bent. So I don't know how 100% he will be by Sunday if he is active and playing, but that is certainly a storyline to watch for Sunday for Kansas City. Is if he's not in, you get the Carson Wentz show, and not that it's a game that Kansas City needs to win, but I don't think you can give up any slack knowing Buffalo is going to do everything in there. And Buffalo's schedule the end of season is super favorable. They get the Patriots twice and then somebody else in between. That's not a world beater. So theoretically, Buffalo does have a high chance to win out.
I will say Carson Wentz did have a front row seat to the Nick Foles show.
Did.
So, yeah, I was going to say, do you know how ironic it would be if Carson Wentz was the one that led them to another Super Bowl?
And I know I said this earlier. I would be obviously very annoyed that Kansas City would win us another Super Bowl. But if Carson Wentz did it, I'd be very less annoyed than I would be if Mahomes let him do another Super Bowl. Because it's congrats. What do you do in that situation? You just let Carson Wentz beat you. So that would also just confirm to me that Andy Reid is just a madman genius. He already is, but he'd be up there with the Bill Belichick system offense. So you can plug anybody in there and they'd be an MVP type thing. So if that happened, I would be yep, Andy Reid knows what he's doing. He obviously does, but that would just solidify that, Kansas City might be a system offense at this point under him.
So Zach, are you just super happy that he figured it out in Kansas City after Philadelphia, or
you know what?
Never asked you that one.
Or is it all in the stipulation because he is an MVP type quarterback?
You disrespect Donovan McNabb.
Hey, he wasn't. Was he an MVP? I don't know.
I think so. I don't remember if he was. See, this goes back to even before I was really old enough to keep track of it the way I am now. I understood the game to a point, but I didn't keep track of that stuff. So I think he was in the running, but I don't necessarily think he was MVP. But it's funny because at this point I don't care because the Eagles are still pretty decent, but it is what it is.
Fair enough.
If we're talking about former Eagles quarterbacks, did you see the most recent one that is now going to be a head coach at Norfolk State?
I did. Good old Michael Vick.
There was a rumor he was going to come to Sacramento State.
Yeah. Which I guess
that was interesting.
I guess good for people that want to follow that storyline. I don't know if I will be, but that certainly was a headline that happened this past couple of days.
I mean, I'll be curious to see how he does just from the perspective of like, is he like Dan Campbell, where former player was able to go and be a good head coach, or is he going to be like other people where he is not? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
And I know like Norfolk is probably not going to be like the end all be all type of story to watch, but if he's a good enough coach to start there and then jump to somewhere else, that's where I think the interest will start to take. He's like, is it basically like, is he going to be like the Deion Sanders type of thing where he makes a name for himself? But I also wonder, like, Deion Sanders arguably was one of the greatest players in the NFL, at least for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Vick, you could probably make the argument to a degree. But like, I feel like Michael Vick has been so far removed from the NFL for a while, especially after the whole dog incident. Which he did all of his time for, and he did come back to the NFL and played for the Eagles. So I guess but still, like I feel like he's been removed from like the football and like the spotlight for so long. Will he be able to attract people to his team the same way Deion did?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's an unfair bar to set just because Deion was also doing great things, fairly good things at Jackson State. So who knows? I'll be curious, but. Right. That'll be a fun one to follow. Just like, again, kind of like, out the window type thing.
Right. And then the Raiders are still bad. Not that that was ever an issue, but they're still bad.
The water is still wet.
The water is still wet. That's very, very true. And then, Nate, are you concerned about Green Bay?
Am I supposed to be?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
Are you?
I'm gonna go with probably not.
Not in the sense that that they'll necessarily meet you in the playoffs. I mean, there's still a chance, but I don't know how I feel about them in terms of.
I mean, we still play them next week, I think. So.
Yeah, that is a Sunday.
Yeah, we got Seattle this Sunday. We got Packers after that, and then we finish the season against the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have already locked up a playoff spot, so it's not like you need to win these games, but obviously you don't want to lose them. Yeah.
If we win out, we actually get the number one seed.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, because you would have the head-to-head against Detroit.
Mm-hmm. And we beat out Philadelphia by strength of victory, according to ESPN at least. So, sorry, Zach.
No, I like looking at it. I was like, no, that makes sense. And like also the Viking, like it's crazy because like the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFL, really the only one that's like questionable as like who, honestly, I could see the Vikings, the Eagles, the Bills, and Detroit being like the 4 teams that could make like a set of teams that could make the Super Bowl. I don't know how the Chiefs keep. And I don't know. It could be that like the Chiefs are the top team in the NFL right now, and it's just they almost shouldn't be, but yet I'm guessing that once the playoffs start, that somehow they're going to find that switch and then just start playing like their normal selves, and somehow.
And that's
it's. I hate to say that because I know Andy absolutely hates it, but it's true.
It is,
yeah.
and
they're somehow going to find a way to bring Tyreek Hill to the team, even though they technically can't, but they're going to find someone to do it.
But I mean, it's a saying of. Brady and Belichick. It's like, the Patriots could be, mid for the season, but like the minute you get to the playoffs, you don't bet against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at the playoffs. I mean, it's the same thing here now. It's you don't bet against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
I mean, once you get to the playoffs, a whole new season starts. Yeah.
It's like regular season record goes out the window because it's one and done at that point. And it's the same thing is once they get to the playoffs, you just don't bet against them because they know what they're doing. With that. So yeah, with kind of along the playoff lines. In terms of, at least for Denver, they did get their big win Sunday against mid-average team of the Indianapolis Colts. Denver did.
You were worried.
You were very worried.
I was very worried. Considering how that game started. Bo Nix finally looked like weeks 1 through 4 rookie Bo Nix in that game. Had a very Jameis stat line, 3 touchdowns, but also 3 picks. So
it's bordering on Jameis line, but it needs to be like 5 or 6 to stick. You know, it needs to be like 5 TDs,
and
5
like
picks.
800 passing yards.
Yeah.
Right.
But Denver's defense balled out in the second half, secured the win. I was nervous because like if they had lost that game, their playoff odds shot down to like 50%. Currently, they are at a 92% guarantee. And the path to the playoffs now is they just need to win a game of their next 3. They don't need to like win and have other teams lose. It's literally if they win and they're in. So if they do lose, I think then it's stipulated on like they have like if they lose, but then Miami and Indianapolis and Cincinnati all have to like lose, so on and so forth. So pretty simple. Just win one game and they're a lock for the playoffs. So next 3 games, again, ideally not the opponents I do want to be playing to end the season, with Chargers on Thursday night here coming up, and then Cincinnati, and then Kansas City to close it out. So not saying that they won't do it, but it's not ideal for the ending of their schedule to try to find a win in there.
Just as a reminder for everybody that does listen to us, and has also listened to us consistently, Andy did say that he was very fearful that the Broncos were going to win, I think, like 3 games this year. So I'd say they had a pretty good glow up this season.
It is. And, you know, there are obviously better candidates for coaches of the years right now, but the only case I make for Sean Payton is, one, you're doing this on a roster that is, you can't spend like 60, 70 million of your cap space right now because you're paying Russell Wilson. So you literally had to go try to build this roster off of younger guys that wouldn't take max contracts and drafted rookies. And if you look at their draft class, I think 6 out of their 7 total picks are all starting on offense and defense right now. So it's what they had to do. And I get why the season predictions were so low. It's just because you're, one, a rookie quarterback, but 2, there was just so many unknowns with how the defense played last year and what the offense was going to look like under Bo. But I mean, yeah, like I had said before, I just wanted a winning season, and they have guaranteed a winning season right now. Because if they lose out, which will suck, that also means they probably wouldn't make the playoffs. But I mean, they would finish 9-8, and they will finish with a winning season for the first time since 2016, which was the season after the Super Bowl, it might have been the Super Bowl year. But yeah, there was a lot of unknowns, and I'm very happy that my quarterback or my coach does not hate my quarterback like all of last season.
Turns out that helps, I guess.
It helps tremendously when you're not trying to sabotage your own team into getting rid of said quarterback. So, but yeah, that was the only case I would make for Sean Payton, is he kind of built a low level rookie type roster and turned it into a right now 9-win team with money that you can't spend to go. Because I mean, if they had the 60-70 million, they could go try to make a bigger splash, free agent, trade, higher name, whatever you want to call it.
They could get Tyreek Hill.
They could. They could, but they'll have to. I mean, they'll carry the dead cap into next year too. I think it's a little less next year, so they'll probably still be in the same situation again, and probably reliant on the draft more for their free agency pickups more than anything else. But it's a good start for a quote unquote rebuild process, if you want to call it that. But yeah, big games coming up here. Theoretically, if you look at it, I guess the Chargers are their best chance to win that last final game. I don't know what Cincinnati's going to look like week 17. I guess it depends on if they win this weekend and whether they wait the white flag by week 17 or not. Because they still very much theoretically have a path to the playoffs. Their hope is Denver has to lose these next 3 games, though. I think that's the only way.
You think that the Chargers is going to be the better game over the Bengals?
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't. The only reason the Bengals still scare me is it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
True, but you also have one of the top corners in the NFL. I mean,
well, yeah, but T. Higgins is also still a problem. And
right,
Burrow
but T. Higgins
is still a problem.
T. Higgins is also not Jamar Chase, though.
No,
so like if you can lock down Jamar Chase, then I see you got a pretty good chance. And also, let's not forget that the Bengals defense is
trash,
is non-existent. So
that's. I mean, I'm the only reason I'm cheering for the Bengals to lose this week is that they wave the white flag by week 17, and because I think if they lose one more, they're done. I mean, Cincinnati has to win out, like Miami has to win out, Indianapolis has to win out, all in the hopes that Denver loses out. Then there's some sort of weird tiebreak scenario that happens there. But yeah, I mean, that's the only reason I'm saying that is just because Justin Herbert is still. I mean, he's healthy, but like he still has that ankle issue, which might limit what he does tomorrow night in terms of his mobility and everything. And Denver's got a really good pass rush. I mean, I think they still lead the league in sacks right now. And they don't have J.K. Dobbins, which in their first matchup they did. And they played Denver pretty early in the season this year, right when Denver was still trying to figure out what they were on offense and everything. So, and I could say the same about the Chargers. You're playing a different team, but they haven't looked great the past 3 to 4 weeks. I think they're 1-3 in their past 4 games, and they just got shellacked by Baker pretty handedly. So hopefully they use that game film a little bit to see what the Chargers' weaknesses were on defense and expose that in the same way. So, yeah, it's very scary coming up, and I know I mentioned to you guys that it's not ideal when Denver plays their games because the next 2 games happen tomorrow during volleyball, and they got flexed to the Saturday after the bowl game. So
let's go.
Nice.
It's going to be a lot of sports for me, and I'm going to have a lot of emotions that will affect me tremendously.
And they'll all be positive.
You'll be fine.
So
you'll be fine.
We need to talk about how the Bears are not a serious franchise.
Well, I feel like we got to let Nate talk about the Vikings.
Well, that leads into the Vikings game, Zach. That's who they played.
Just saying, though. I mean, we all knew the Bears weren't a serious organization. What are you talking about?
No.
But the Vikings
kept Matt Eberflus.
Not anymore.
Well, but they kept him at the beginning of the year when they probably should have fired him.
True.
So we knew they weren't serious.
Yeah, I would say unserious pretty well categorizes Bears. If they had those 2 touchdowns, or the one guy didn't report in that they had to call back, there was some other stupid penalty or something that called back a touchdown
Twice.
Yeah, I mean, to be
they
fair,
were on
the Bears,
1 yard line.
They've been like this close for probably like the past 6 or 7 games.
The Chicago Bears are the Nebraska of the NFL this year.
Probably.
Because they played Packers, Vikings, Lions all within 3-point games, and then I think they just kind of gave up now. So I feel a little bad for Caleb Williams because like.
His line sucks.
Yeah, you might as well just have the center snap it to you and have like 8 receivers instead.
They'd probably have better time with that, to be honest.
Honestly,
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't feel bad because I don't care about the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, it's just like, and I don't necessarily. I know I said this. Like, I don't necessarily care for Caleb Williams, but I did give him credit. I think in the middle of the season where he was actually he still looks really good for a quarterback. And I'm putting quotes.
I was gonna say I don't.
it's
I don't
not
feel bad for the Bears. I feel bad for Caleb Williams just as a rookie, not really like being thrown in and not having the opportunity to give your best shot.
Right. And like the freaking play where they got to the 1 yard line, and then was it DeAndre Swift that punched it in, but then they threw the flag, and it was because the one guy didn't report in.
Yep.
I'm like, that right there just sums up like I feel like Bears fandom or like Bears games in general for the past like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not obviously not a Bears fan, but just like, ugh, that would no thank you.
Well, and then we talked about this last week, Nate, too, is our teams are similar and Zach's team too. When you have an offensive line, your quarterback can do amazing things when he has time. And you watch that game. Now, obviously, we know that the Vikings and Brian Flores are madmen. So it's not, trying to watch that tape and making it look like, oh, the Bears bad, line is bad. And they are. The Vikings are just that type of defense. But, there were so many plays where like he's running around scrambling, trying to find an open guy because he just doesn't have time to throw. And then you watch Sam Darnold, you watch Jalen, or you watch Bo that have time to step back in the pocket and have time to go through the progression and look for receivers and eventually find the person. So, and that's why Justin Fields still might not be a great quarterback, but I don't think he was the issue that was wrong in Chicago either. Yeah. It all comes back to their offensive line. And those first couple 3-4 weeks with Justin in Pittsburgh, Justin looked like a better quarterback. So I think I also thought that was a little bizarre that they brought Russ in, and Russ has looked better too. But
I was just going to say, arguably, the Steelers won in that regard because Russ has looked really well. Justin Fields still plays specific packages, and he still looks really good too. Like he actually looks maybe not like top 5 quarterback, but he looks good.
And when he was the starter, he looked better than he did in Chicago. That's what having a competent offensive line does for you. Which the Bears do not have.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. To that point though, Jalen Hurts still, as much as I love him, and I think he's a great quarterback, he still has some pocket awareness issues, but I think he's kind of is split in that middle where it's like he's trying to play too much hero ball sometimes, where it's like, hey, if your read's not open in the first second, 2 seconds, whatever it is, depending on how long the play takes to develop, throw it away. His legs are what makes him such a dynamic quarterback, obviously, but it's just like, dude, there are some times where he just needs to just throw the ball away, or there was against the Steelers, he took a sack against TJ Watt, and like people on the internet were like, oh, Lane Johnson couldn't block him long enough. Well, first of all, it's TJ Watt.
It's TJ Watt.
And also Lane Johnson did his job for like 3 seconds, which is a long time. Jalen should have got rid of the ball. It's like there's more to it than that. Like come on now.
That's like when Denver plays the Raiders every year, or every season, I'm like, I hate this game because Max Crosby's on the other side, and trying to game plan against Max Crosby is a nightmare for the offensive line coaches, because it's like, do you double him? Do you hope that your guard does a good job like one-on-one blocking? Do you bring a running back in to kind of double block too? It's it's DNs like that. It's like if they get sacks, you're like, yeah, it's because it's so and so making the play. It's, if you get sacked by TJ Watt, like, don't take offense to it. Like, he's really good at what he does. But outside of, my personal bias game has big playoff implications, but I don't know if this weekend slate, besides it being the last 3 games of the season, I don't know if there's like any big.
Thea disagrees.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess the Buccaneers Cowboys on Sunday night technically, quote unquote, has playoff implications in terms of Tampa more than Dallas, but I guess theoretically, if Dallas wins out, they could sneak into the playoffs. I'm not saying
finally,
that they will.
That happens, Zach.
We're finally easy now. We're finally starting to get down to like the important part of the NFL season, though,
Yes.
where it's like now we're starting to see the playoffs start to take shape.
Whether matchups or individual teams games start to matter.
Yeah.
Not that they don't matter before, but like these last 3 weeks, they really, really do matter now. Whether you're in the hunt or trying to secure your spot, so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, there's no games that I look at this slate and are like, oh yeah, that's going to be such a good game. I mean, the Eagles Commanders is going to be a really fun offensive game. At least I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this version of Philly's defense now does against Jaden Daniels again.
Honestly, yeah, I think that game's going to be a lot. That game's going to be telling, just because I think on paper,
I mean,
the
Saquon
Eagles
ran for 3 touchdowns last time against them.
something like that. The Eagles on paper, and I understand you play the game, blah blah blah, but on paper, the Eagles should win. But
yes, Thea, tell us your thoughts.
Yes, please. But it's not a guarantee. It's an in-conference game, in-division game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just as important for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's gonna be a good game. But this is one of those games where what scares me about this one is it's at Washington, and their field is known to be terrible. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that the turf monster doesn't take some people. But
anyway, I don't know why I overlooked this one immediately. Pittsburgh and Baltimore on Saturday.
I think they have Saturday games actually look pretty good.
Yeah,
Saturday's gonna be so weird to have. I know we're in that lull period with bowl games and stuff where Saturdays now start to get consumed by NFL, but it's just God, it just feels wrong. It just feels wrong.
Well, then we have Wednesday games next week because of Christmas. So.
Christmas on Netflix.
Hate that.
I'm just glad that I'll be able to watch them. Half the time I feel like I'm traveling for Christmas, on Christmas Day. So it's I don't ever get to watch any of the games. But this year I finally get to. So are they any good? Maybe that's what
I will be diligently watching the weather.
Kansas City and Pittsburgh,
right,
should be really good. And then the night game, or I guess the afternoon game, would be Baltimore and Texans, which preseason that was probably a really hype match just because the Texans, I think, were supposed,
I say Texans are still, I think they clinched the AFC South. So
they're Texans, not in, but they were. I think more of the hype was going to be oh, this is going to be their 12 win, they'll go into that game 12-2 or 13-2, something like that type season. And I mean, 9-5 is obviously nothing to snuff about. They won their division, but they haven't looked like the team that I think they were hyped up to be in. I think
it doesn't help that all their receivers have been a revolving door of injury.
Yeah, especially Nico, who was on pace to have a 1,500-yard season, then pulls his hammy on a touchdown.
And then lost Diggs halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Thought Tank Dell was injured for a bit too. Joe Mixon's been kind of in and out. So
yeah, and CJ's going through a little bit of a sophomore slump right now. I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been what he was hyped up last year either. It's been enough for them.
But I think losing so many of your offensive weapons that will do that to a guy though too.
It wasn't oh, he's going to be MVP next season or talk about MVP type race. That I mean I certainly thought he had a chance to be talked about like that, but they've done enough to get into the playoffs. It's just how are they going to look round one of the playoffs, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Is I don't know what they're going to look like, because I think right now they would get the Ravens technically, which would be a matchup of this game. So
I was going to say, so we'd be seeing an example of this game
if the current seeds were to hold right now, with them at 4 and the Ravens at the 5th seed. So might be a preview of their matchup in 3 weeks after that too.
And the Ravens this year have looked really good at times, but then also dropped games that they absolutely shouldn't have too. So
like Jameis,
so that could be a super interesting game.
One of the 2 Raiders wins was the Ravens, which is insane.
It's so crazy to look back at the beginning of the season too, where the Ravens lost to the Chiefs, and everybody was okay, somebody had to lose that game, right? But we were at that point being like, we could be seeing like a potential like getting near the Super Bowl type matchup at that point. And then,
Right.
I'm not saying it's not there, but it's certainly not the same thing that it was, at the beginning of the year where everybody's like, oh, I think the Ravens might finally be a team to take down. Now, if anything, it's the Bills that are going to be the ones that everybody's like, oh, they're going to take down the Chiefs this year, which to be fair, if that's how far it gets, I hope that's how it goes. Yep. I was going to say
Josh Allen beats Kansas City in the regular season and just cannot do it in the playoffs. So I will believe it once I see it.
I do think
I obviously want to believe in the Bills. I want to cheer for them. They just have to prove it.
And you both have mentioned it too, but like the Bills defense looks very sus the last like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And going into playoff time,
problem.
not a great time for that to happen. So.
Now, obviously, if they can like continue to score 40+ points a game, you're fine with that. But
as long as you can stop the other team from doing the same thing,
which they haven't the past 2 weeks.
So
they've just been enough to score more.
Honestly, before we get to NCAA football, I feel like we have to talk about this though too. Michael Penix Jr. has been announced as the starter for the Falcons as of this recording. So it'll be the upcoming Sunday before this, after this episode comes out, thankfully. But now, thankfully, all the drama's on kind of that with like Kirk Cousins and everything and how he feels about it, rather than Philadelphia for once. Fucking great. So
give Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah Executive of the Year. For not signing Kirko to a $180 million contract.
Atlanta is doing exactly what Denver's doing. Is they're going to pay their quarterback a lot of money to not play, and that's exactly what they're doing.
The one thing that scares me, and I don't say like I'm actually nervous about it, but for the sake of like looking at it from like a fan perspective of just like how my brain would work if I was a Falcons fan would be, Michael Penix is old for like a rookie. Mm-hmm. So how many good years he's not like ancient by any means, but he's old enough to where like the question mark does become if he does succeed these last few games, great. Mm-hmm. How many good years do you get out of him though? Compared to like somebody like Caleb Williams, which obviously they had a chance to get him, but
he's still only 24.
I'm just saying, like, no, but he's older, and also like he has the injury concern though too, and I think that's what I'm putting into my aging category here is like he's got like the ACL injury and everything. I think it was ACL. He's got that injury that he came off of, and he obviously played very well after that, but. Just like these are still concerns that as a Falcons fan, which I am not, but as a potential Falcons fan, you could be like, I don't think it was a bad move. I don't think it was necessarily the one they should have done at the draft either, but what do you do? So
Andy, are you concerned about your 24-year-old quarterback? I am apparently smoking 18 packs a day. I apologize.
That's a lot. That's a lot of packs of cigarettes, my guy.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to back it down to 17, but just hasn't caught yet.
Not licensed medical professionals, but that sounds like a good idea. No, I guess the age thing really only matters if you didn't produce, and with the right coach in place, obviously Bo has gotten better progressively throughout the season. Now, and I don't know if the age thing is more of a now thing or if it might be a future trend we see in college sports, as well as, or at least maybe just in the short term, just because of the whole COVID year extension and players being able to play in college longer because of their eligibility and so on and so forth. So I don't know if that might be a trend we'll see where play in college longer, especially now with NIL that you can get paid in college, that maybe kids will stay in college longer, get more experience, get paid while they're doing it, and then eventually go to the NFL, when you're 24, 25. If that is, I don't know if that's going to be something that'll pay off long term, but it's certainly worth thinking about, considering now that you don't have to go to the NFL in your third year to get paid right away. You can do it while you're in college. Getting, if you're a really 5-star quarterback like Dylan, I mean, you get, over $1 million every year for 4 years plus. So who knows? Back to your question though, no, Nate, I am not worried about my 24-year-old quarterback unless he got hurt. Then I'd be worried. But
Fair enough.
no, it's something. I know I kind of took that question and diluted it a lot more than it needed to be, but I mean,
we never do.
Never.
What are you talking about?
It's worth a thought to think about that, especially with NIL. Anything can happen day to day now. Are kids going to be willing to stay in college longer and get paid rather than go to the NFL and get a rookie contract that's the minimum right away? So I don't know. It's worth talking about, and definitely with the transfer portal now, it's
Oh yeah. And you're correct, Nate. He's not that old. I'm just saying that on top of the injury history and everything, it's just like, having basically to sit this whole year up until game 15 or whatever we're on, week 15 or whatever. It's a little bit crazy to think that he's going to be starting, which it's good. He should be, but like, there's a lot of roster implications that go into him starting. And if he does perform well, great. But then now you're asking the question of, what do we do with Kirko? So
I think I sent that picture to you guys when they announced that Michael Penix was going to be starting. Somebody on Twitter was like, "Is it finally Pitt's season?" And it's that meme of Mr. Krabs and Squidward behind the door while SpongeBob's cleaning of like, should we tell him?
Should we tell him?
The answer is no. It is never going to be Kyle Pitt's season, as much as you want to believe.
Yeah, just ask my fantasy team. Thank God. Thank God I got Brock Bowers. Although he's on the Raiders, so that might not necessarily be an upgrade. He's been very good this year, but depending on who they get for their head coach
receiver, I would trust that any fantasy option right now is the one that gets 13 targets a game.
Well, yes, but if they get a competent coach next year, they might start spreading that out, so he might not be as efficient.
Or Shador.
Well, like I said,
them or the Giants are taking them. Somebody's taking them. It's whether it's going to be the Giants or the Raiders.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And then I guess in that regard, I guess we can actually use that. That's a good little segue. With that, going to college football is a good start. Deion Sanders apparently announced in a roundabout way. He didn't necessarily say it like in a full I am staying at Colorado, but
sounds like Deion Sanders.
He made a comment that basically sounded like, "Yep, I like what I've got here at Colorado. I plan on staying here for a while." Like he said it more or less like he plans on staying there, but also there was kind of it was one of those statements that had some of that room behind it to be like, he might leave. You never know. So, but obviously, it'll be really interesting with Travis Hunter winning the Heisman, which Nate absolutely loves. I do think we were all in agreement, though, that Jonty should have won it. But to be fair, when you look at it,
shiny things, I get it.
Well, and of course, it was always going to go to a player that played two ways. My question is, when he does go to the NFL, Travis Hunter, that is, I would be willing to bet that the NFL execs, wherever he goes, are going to be like, "You're playing one position." Like, I highly doubt he's going to play both ways in the NFL.
I just, that if
Nate hates this topic.
If team success doesn't matter now, I guess sure. I don't know. I'm old enough to remember when Christian McCaffrey lost to Derrick Henry back too many years ago now. But primarily on the fact that Alabama was better than Stanford.
So, I mean, yeah, Yeah. No, I'm. The three of us all agree on this. Like Jonty should have won it.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
but when you look at like the Heisman is 100%. It's not fan voted, but for the lack of I don't know
Popularity
exactly.
contest.
Yeah, it is. I will say this: the one nice thing out of the Heisman race this year, at least in terms of those two, that it came down to them two, basically. At least it wasn't a quarterback. Like
That's true.
at one point in time, like it felt like, well, I mean, even just last year, but it always felt like outside of a few years, every now and then, it always felt like it was a quarterback, kind of like the MVP in like the NFL. It seems like it's always a quarterback most times, and which is fair. I get it, but it's like Travis Hunter for Colorado did make a big difference. At least in theory. I don't think it was just him, but Jonty absolutely made a difference for Boise. So
Yeah, I'm gonna say the guy that almost rushed for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against the consensus #1 team.
Yeah.
You know,
Should win.
Might be all right at football. So
yeah, no, I agree, but
I don't know what else you want him to do. Like,
no, I agree. But like you said, the shiny thing being the
Yeah.
two-way player.
Mhm.
And I mean, in a certain, I will say though, one of the only teams that really shut down Travis Hunter and by extension Colorado was that's right, Nebraska. Which
Yep.
also, if you go back and watch Nebraska's regular season games, outside of maybe Wisconsin, Colorado was easily the best game that Nebraska played all
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Actually, I don't know. I may give the nod to Wisconsin because it seemed like for that whole game against Wisconsin, Nebraska was just playing lights out. Where like the third quarter, it could be argued against Colorado, where we were like, nah, it was a little questionable. But I think we were playing super conservative at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much for. Obviously, nothing really big happened other than the bowl games.
The early bowl games.
Yeah, early bowl games. In terms of Nebraska,
refs are the worst.
Yeah, the refs are always the worst.
Frisco Bowl deserved better last night.
I did see the end of that. Yes,
Unbelievable.
should have been a fumble,
Yep.
but it wasn't. Anyways, Nebraska did. I don't know if they've actually made it official, but I think they are on their way to making it official. They did hire Addison Williams to be full-time defensive backs coach, which was John Butler's role before he became DC. So, like we had said, Butler probably giving up full-time, at least coaching the DBs, just to focus on defensive coordinator. With my guess would be with Phil Snow as well. Addison Williams from UCF, formerly not Scott Frost staff, UCF, but the staff before Scott Frost. Biggest thing is I think they led the Big 12 last year in defensive passing yards allowed, so which was like 180 passing, like they average 180 yards given up through the air a game. So, or at least in terms of like the defensive backs, everything. So, stat wise, supposedly getting a really good defensive back coach in here. And then I think the other big portal news was I think it was Williams, the 5-star edge out of Missouri that transferred to Nebraska. No, I said that last week.
No, I think that happened after we recorded. I don't think he had. I think it was rumored that he might.
He was going to, yeah,
but I don't think he officially did. He did
Yeah.
officially come here. Yes,
he did officially come here. So big win for them. And then I know they've also signed a long snapper and a punter out of the portal. So getting our special teams needs because Brian Boom Sheeny is going to be gone this year because he graduated.
I think the punter was from Washington, right?
Yes. So Jack McAllister, I think was his name, is the punter. So get used to that name because what we're going to be hearing won't be the same as Boom Sheeny anymore, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to workshop that one.
Yeah, we're gonna workshop some new ones.
In other news too, as of like an hour ago, this was after we started recording, but before we finished recording, obviously, Dane Key from Kentucky has announced he's going to be visiting Nebraska on Friday.
Yes.
So
him and
could be huge.
Somebody else.
Phil Simpson?
No, that's our linebacker coach. I might be the FIU guy.
Sorry. The one I saw was Phil Simpson was hinting at Patrick Payton. Was what I was thinking.
Yes, him too. Either way, Nebraska's hosting a couple of transfer receivers this weekend, so might be big for them to get them signed. I did forget to mention that Dowdell has at least entered the portal.
I legitimately think that's him just testing the waters.
Kind of like what Emma did.
Yeah. Well, so I'm sure you guys knew this, but for people that didn't, in order to even like go out and see like what your NIL offers would be anywhere else, you have to enter the portal. You're not allowed to find that out without being in the portal. I didn't actually know that until like last week. I get it, but I'm also like, that's stupid. That's a really dumb system. But this kind of proves the point of like, I don't know how you do it within the sanctions of like the NCAA and being, student focused. Big heavy air quotes if the way I said it wasn't obvious. Like, because the NCAA will always lose that argument when it comes to that, because like, well, they need to be focused on their studies first. So if they want to transfer out for any other reason, if it's not sports related, then they're obviously going to have to accommodate that. But it's just like, there has to be some kind of safeguard or something that like, I don't know, this having to enter the portal.
Right.
At this point, it's just like your coworker that leaves after a year because I found a better job somewhere, even if he didn't. It's just like, or they didn't, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be a he. But in this case of football, it's just like, it's tiring. But I think this year is also worse because of the roster limitation.
Yeah. Like
going forward, once we get to that 105, I don't think it's going to be as bad, but I personally like the NIL system. I think it's great that it exists, but I'm not necessarily here saying it's a perfect system currently and it needs fixed.
Right.
It's a great system to have. It's not a great system as it sits currently. Both things can be true.
You are right. So they're hosting a couple transfer wide receivers. I know they had the FIU wide receiver here Monday or Tuesday, and then Key from Kentucky, and I think the other guy is from California.
Yeah, Cal wide receiver.
Yeah. So we're hosting them. So we'll see if we get any commits over the weekend.
We did have one more before we get too far. Jalen George from Tennessee.
Oh, yes.
D-line.
Eastern Tennessee.
Oh, really? It just says Tennessee.
Yeah, let's make that apparent.
Sorry, Tennessee State.
Sorry, Tennessee State. I was like, it was not
That's pretty much the same thing.
Big stipulation.
I mean, hey,
just a couple extra letters. It's fine.
So I'll be interested to see, because the thing is, like, the portal closes December 28th, and that's Nebraska's bowl game. So, like, I'm very intrigued if, like, immediately after the bowl game, if there's, like, any late additions to the portal, if people just want to throw their names in, what's going to happen on December 29th in terms of staff, so on and so forth. What's Rule going to do before spring ball gets in? And so kind of not just the transfer portal, that's not recruits or anything like that. So I think obviously the bowl game's important, but like what happens after the bowl game in terms of roster, staff, commits, so on and so forth, probably going to be pretty important for Rule to focus on going forward. So that's obviously I'm excited for the bowl game, but I'm very excited to see what happens afterwards in terms of what changes are made, who's coming in, who's leaving, so on and so forth. Which is I would like to see what would happen if Nebraska's bowl game would have been like December 26th. Then like who would we see enter the portal like in those 2 days before it closes after the bowl game, knowing you might not make it to spring ball. So it'll be interesting if anything happens too. I mean, nothing could happen all at the same time. So, but I don't think there's anything Nebraska football wise outside of that.
I mean, realistically, college football has kind of been quiet up until playoffs start here. And I mean, there's bowl games obviously coming up, but that's really until this episode comes out as the bigger bowl games start. So
Right.
For the Frisco Bowl, which was raw.
Actually, though, with that,
volleyball, volleyball.
I guess we didn't talk about volleyball, but
we gotta talk about the girls.
The Nebraska volleyball team is in the Final Four of the NCAA tournament,
And they own Wisconsin.
Nebraska has better cheese.
Sure.
I mean, I confidently can't say that because Wisconsin cheese is fantastic, but I mean, technically speaking, I think Nebraska owns Wisconsin this year.
A 9-0 sweep on the season is pretty impressive, considering the last time that they had even swept Wisconsin was like 2015 or some many years ago. But the fact to win the season series and then sweep them in the tournament, nonetheless, still impressive feat. Final Four set between Louisville, Penn State, us, and Pitt. All number one seeds. So I guess if you didn't like a number one seed
game rematches too, I believe. So.
Yeah. So if you didn't like a Homer-esque type number one seed de facto Final Four, this isn't the sport for you.
I will say though,
it's entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Some solid matches.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a bunch of people like Twitter, Reddit, whatever wise, are like really quote unquote nervous about like if we, going up against Penn State again. And it's like, nah, Nebraska getting into the tournament has looked locked in crazy. And also Nebraska played arguably their second worst game of the season, that first worst being against SMU, which apparently was just the wagon of the entire season, who also beat, was it Penn State or was it Texas or whatever? Pitt. Yeah. So it's like, well, there you go. So, you know what I mean? Like, SMU was the true champion this year. And everybody knows it at this point. But no, I think Nebraska at this point, they own I almost argue they would own their destiny. It is also nice to see that Texas is not in the Final Four. Nope. That's always nice.
New champion this year. Yep. So, yeah, Harper's made true in her word so far that they said they would be back at this point this year, next year at the same time in the championship. So they're one step away from doing that. And, it's really hard to call your shot, especially that far out, especially moments after you lose a national championship, to go up there and say, we're going to be back at this time next year in the championship again. Like, you just wait and see. Like, one, extremely bold take to have, but then to go out and continually prove that each match and each game that they've played this year. I mean, she's gotten a lot better this year too, and she's only a sophomore, so she's going to have another fun 2 years of making true on that promise.
Dylan also said that we were going to beat Wisconsin.
He did. We've had two Husker athletes call their shot this year, and
technically Dylan said we were going to win the last two, but
no, he said we were going to beat Wisconsin, and then the season ended abruptly. Actually,
yes.
So
this Black Friday thing really must have blacked.
It was actually Blackout Friday.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I don't know what happened, but all I know is I went to bed with turkey leftovers, and I woke up Saturday, and I was like, what happened? Did I sleep for
I feel
24
different.
hours? Yeah. Was it like the Avengers and the blip where, you suddenly come back 5 years later and you're like, whoa, what happened?
What did I miss?
What did I miss? Just the 24-hour period, not the whole 5-year part that happened.
These are just details.
But yeah, obviously when this comes out, we'll either know if they won or lost. So, boo Penn State if they lost, but yay Nebraska if we win. We'll just preemptively record our reactions.
There you go.
I like
There
that.
you go.
But with that, I think we're out of
Picks?
sports to talk about. Yeah.
Picks.
All right. Well, I don't know if you guys got any. I've got at least one loaded up. I don't know what to put it as though, so I'll be kind of figuring it out. But actually, no, I think I know. I'll start us off. I'll let you guys think. I'm gonna call up my second team that I cheered, my second college football team that I cheered for throughout the year.
Mhm.
Tulane. As this episode comes out, Tulane plays Florida in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. What a name! Now Tulane is 9-4. Florida Gators are 7-5. Florida probably, arguably, like the better team, but
Mhm.
Tulane has played some really, really good games. Florida's favored by 11 points in this bowl, though. I think that's a lot of points. Especially, I think Tulane. I don't necessarily think they win, but I think they can at least cover 11 points. So I'm gonna actually go with actually, and it's gotten worse too because the spread opened for Florida favored at 9.5, and it's moved to 11. So I haven't really followed the team, so I'm guessing people are leaving with like the transfer portal and people going to the NFL and stuff. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, it's happening everywhere. So I think we're going to see two completely different teams play. I'm taking Tulane at plus 11 just to cover at minimum. If they win, great. But I'm taking at least the cover. So
Okay. I got my pick. Unless you want to go, Nate.
Go for it.
I will take in one of my favorite bowls to say, the Potato Bowl. The famous
potato
Idaho Potato Bowl, nonetheless. Give me the team that should have been in the playoff, the fighting Northern Illinois Huskies.
Oh,
-3 over Fresno State. Only because they beat Notre Dame.
fair enough.
So I feel like if you beat a playoff team, you should automatically get into the playoff as a group of 5 team. So Northern Illinois should be in place of Notre Dame and should be going to Bloomington instead. Or actually, they should host Indiana at that rate. I
when
would love a playoff team in Northern Illinois.
when is that game played?
Monday, the 23rd.
Oh, hell yeah. Good old Fresno State.
We have played a lot of non-conference games against both those teams.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say, I look at this, I'm like, wow, we've played them both before. Interesting.
Yes.
It's Northern Illinois. And I'm assuming I forgot to say that was my sports bold
Yeah,
pick. I assume
that's
that's
my
yours
bold.
too. And what was the line? Did you say? Sorry,
-3.
-3. I like that. Nathan.
I think I'm going to go for the better playoff. I'm going to say Montana State covers -8 against South Dakota.
I love how we avoided the actual playoff.
I mean, I don't know, the first games. I don't know. I don't.
You guys wanted to guess the Nebraska line right now?
I was just looking at it too, and I forgot to. What is it's like 2?
2.5 for Nebraska.
Right?
It's weird too because if you look at ESPN, we're 2.5 point favorites, but the power index or whatever the percentage thing has us at like 49.2 or something. So their percentage has us losing, but we're favored.
Yeah, makes
Explain
sense.
that one, ESPN.
Science. Even though it's all math, but science.
Nate, sorry, I was trying to type and my computer goofed up. Did you say who yours was?
Yeah, Montana State will cover -8 against South
Nice.
Dakota.
Just doesn't want to admit that it was his fault.
It was my fault, but like everything just started spazzing out on my screen. So I'm like,
Likely story.
Hey man, this is coming from the same guy that had a freaking Windows update before we started recording. This is not that crazy to think about. I maintain my position.
I've got my sick pick if you're.
Yeah, I'm still looking, so go for it.
Give me Seattle +3. I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding. No,
Not
give
very
me
sick of you.
Jacksonville 1.5 over Raiders. They're plus 1.5,
fair.
so
That's fair.
the Raiders are favored. I don't know
Interesting.
how, but they are.
Jump on
Not only
that.
did the line open at -1 for Vegas, but it jumped up to 1.5.
Huh.
But yeah, give me Jacksonville plus 1.5 over the Raiders.
Amazing, incredible, honestly.
I don't know how Vegas is favored, but they are. They shouldn't be, but they are. But yeah.
You got one, or is it my
Jones
turn?
over whoever's running the operations for the Raiders. I don't even know who it is at this point. It's not Aiden O'Connell. It's not Derek Carr. It's not.
Like Aiden O'Connell might actually be back this week.
Okay. I don't think he played this last game.
Who? No, he didn't.
watch
Who
their
the
game.
hell? Who is the
Desmond
frickin-
Ritter.
It is Desmond Ritter.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely give me Mac
Fantastic.
Jones. I trust Mac Jones ever so slightly more. Not a lot, but ever so slightly.
I don't know, man. I don't know. The Raiders almost had a comeback here before too long. Granted, a lot of that was based on Amir Abdullah,
And
former
now,
Husker. So
but Max Crosby isn't playing anymore, so their defense isn't worth anything. And I'm not taking the Falcons game by any means. I mean, the Falcons are bad too. They suck.
I think for
Ouch.
my sick pick, I'm gonna go the Saints cover. I don't think they win, but I think they cover -14.5. I think they can make it under 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
who are they playing?
Packers.
Packers. You don't think the Patriots can cover +14 against the Bills?
Okay,
they-
I was gonna say
They held the
Buffalo.
held
we
the
only have-
Commanders to 20 last week.
we only have 2 picks that we make on this show. If we had a third pick, that would be the range of I hate myself pick, and that's what that pick would be.
Hoping
That'd be
Drake
the
May
ones
can
like-
cover 2 touchdowns against Josh Allen.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay, so timeout. I'm not taking this pick. However, there does exist a world where that may happen, and it's 100% the Bills come out and
But the Patriots need
shellac the
people
piss
that can
out of
catch
them.
the ball.
Yeah.
Right, but
Patriots nobody.
what I'm saying though is the Bills could come out and shellac the absolute piss out of New England to where the second half, literally Josh Allen and the good guys aren't playing and they're playing second stringers the whole time. And I still think it would be way more than over 14 points. I think it'd be one of those where even the backups for the Bills would be like, oh shoot, we didn't mean to score. You know what I mean? And they just do. That's the only scenario I could see maybe even coming anywhere near happening, but I doubt it.
Right.
All right. Well, I guess it's up to me then for the sick pick. You know what? You might hate this one, Andy. Well, I think you'll like the idea, but I'm the one making the pick, so
really
this
don't
could
like
be dangerous. I think Denver wins outright against the Chargers.
I do love that.
The Chargers are favored by 3, but it's at home, so it's basically like a toss-up
At
game.
home in LA is not really a home game anymore.
Right, but what I mean is -3 at home is almost basically a toss-up at this point.
It's the home field advantage.
So this isn't necessarily I don't know if this is kind of being maybe generous on the sick pick side of things, but I will say my pick is that Denver just wins outright and Denver runs away. I'm not giving necessarily a score prediction in that regard, but
I wouldn't feel confident giving you a score prediction. I don't know what's going to happen.
I think Denver's gonna come out and do the job that they need to do. So
I mean, the positive thing about them is if this was teams of years past where you have a good defensive game, Denver's offense has never been really able to take advantage of turnovers in good field position, where they had a piss poor game last against Indianapolis on offense where both threw 3 picks, but they still won. They still scored 31 points. Now, granted, one of those was a pick 6, but that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of hope is if they can create turnovers, they're not completely, giving the game away because their offense can't do anything. Like they are making chances and capitalizing on the defense, turning the ball over, giving them good position or anything, where in years past the team wouldn't do anything on offense when you got good field position. So that's the only thing. Like if they can force, and I remember the last time that the Chargers played Denver, Surtain went out like the first play of the game with a concussion. So he's now fully healthy. Herbert hasn't played Surtain like more than a snap this year. So you put him on on Ladd, and Herbert's gonna have to rely on his no catch receivers to make catches. So he's gonna have to rely on Quentin Johnson to make a catch. So yeah, that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of hope that Denver will win the game is their defense has gotten much better since they last played, and they'll create turnovers and they'll cause havoc. Will Bill put that Sunday game behind him and score on the opportunities that you're given, or we're just gonna have a bunch of pick sixes, which I would love to.
That actually reminded me. I was gonna say I think Bo has a bit of a. I don't think I didn't watch the Denver game last week, but from what you were saying, he looked pretty rough for a while. I think he has kind of a bounce back game where he's like, "Hey, I can improve. Like I can." I think he has a better game. So
he's gonna need to. The Chargers are no slouch on defense either.
No, but they're also not. They're not a top. Well, they might be a top defense, but I don't think they're necessarily like a world. They're not a world beater defense, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's just the Jim Harbaugh led defensive team, which are always good, no matter where he's ever been. That's what it is. But it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be a stressful game.
All right, boys. Anything else that we didn't touch on that we want to finish up with?
What about Big Cargo Burr, Zach? Is that done for the year?
It's done for 2024. It'll be coming back in March in 2025.
So Sergio Perez is leaving Red Bull.
Yeah. I guess technically there is some news, but I figured I would do like a roundup into next year with all that stuff because the fun with F1 is going to start not just next year, but like 2026 when they have a whole new regulation set on cars. So we'll talk more about that later.
Big car not going to go Burr anymore?
Well, so fun fact, it's actually going to be a smaller car because of the new regulations. So it's not so much of a big car anymore.
Small car go Burr?
It's still fairly large, but it's not as large. So
does it look like it sounds the same when you go small car go Burr?
Well, no, they're still pretty. They're still pretty big though. So I'll do an F1 recap. Maybe we'll actually add that in, next year. So. I'll make you guys watch it too, so you can get in on it too.
It's hidden with the Patreon link.
Yes. Nate and I's viewing experience is hidden in the Patreon link.
Nah. You'd love it, I promise. If anything, I mainly I watch it because I actually enjoy the racing at this point now, but the thing that kept me watching it at the beginning when I was like, I don't know if this is really for me is all the crazy freaking off-race drama. It's hilarious. So, all right. Well, if that's it, and unfortunately we don't, I guess Skurs by 90 in the volleyball game.
Yes.
Collectively, I mean, I don't know if you can really score 90 as a team in volleyball.
That'd be a lot of rallies that nobody would win. That'd be a lot of match points no one would win.
Oh, I guess technically speaking, you can if you just add up all the points from 4 or 5 sets. But,
but in one set, that would be a lot of set points no one would win.
I've always wondered if they would get to a point where we're just going to call it at 40 points. You know what I mean? Once it gets to 40, it's whoever gets the next point just wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a rule that if I really wanted to,
it's got to be I feel like there's got to be a mercy rule because you have to keep you would have to keep going. So anyway, beside the point. Skurs by 90, go volleyball, ladies. Next week we get to finally talk about. Crazy enough, we get to talk about more Nebraska football, which we haven't got to do
in the game. Oh no!
Well, Zach won't be able to. But, we'll
here to talk about the bowl game. So, well, that must be a sign that we will sign off. So, for Zach, I am Andy. That is Nate. We are signing off. We'll talk to you next week.